Revolution Radio proudly presents, live from the heart of the Blue Ridge, Roanoke, Virginia. It's the Just Bernard Show with host Bernard Alvarez. Join Bernard as he shares topics that reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience, including world liberty, the esoteric, suppressed technologies, spiritual ascension, and human consciousness. Humanity has awakened, and our time has come to realize our full potential. And now, live from the Star City, your host, Bernard Alvarez.
Anyway, so why is today such an important day for me, and actually an important day for all of us? Treva has been my friend for almost 10 years now. And let me tell you a little bit about my take on this. She's going to be sharing her story a little bit about what it means to going on the path of awakening and becoming or being a transgender woman and becoming an empowered transgender woman. For me, I just got a very interesting statistic here. It is believed that for those of us that are indigo or starseed or whatnot, that the statistic shows that about 5% of all indigo people are transgender, born male but are female inside, or born the other way around. That is a very large proportion compared to society at large. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? You know, and we're not going to be able to answer that. But some of the reasons that come to mind are the fact that many indigo children, indigo adults, those who are on the path of spiritual awakening, have lived many lifetimes and have lived many lifetimes, not only as male but as female as well. And as they evolve, their soul becomes more and more able to integrate these aspects. In Native Americanism, or in indigenous cultures, I should say, it's considered to be a two-spirit, and it's considered to be an evolved being, someone who can integrate both the male and the female within them. And they are actually quite celebrated. So let me tell you a little bit about my friend Treva. It's going to be 10 years next year. Treva, I met as Trevor, and Trevor was someone who was commenting on my YouTube channel all the time, always writing me. And I was like, oh, what a great fan. I have such a great fan, you know. And we became friends through YouTube. And after a while, you know, I had just started to really take off, and my channel blew up, and, you know, all of a sudden I was getting millions of views and whatnot. And I couldn't keep up with everything, so I asked Trevor, I was like, how about you help me with some of these comments and start moderating my comments for me? And he so graciously did. He did a great job, was always on top of everything. And through time, and not much time actually, shortly after that, I began the Global Elimination Council website. And Trevor at that time was one of the first ones to jump on board as an administrator. I don't know if you guys remember back then. It was Annabelle, myself, someone named Swimming Bird, and Jan, a couple of us. We had a great team. And Treva was the most, you know, active, I should say. And of course, you know, over time, I started bringing Trevor onto the Just Bernard Show as my co-host, moderating the chat rooms, and taking care of everything. Anyway, needless to say, I do a lot. I do a lot. Between YouTube and Facebook and my website and seminars and teaching and writing and whatnot, Trevor has always been there with me, for me, working with me. Much of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes is thanks to Treva. And so I thought this would be a wonderful way for you to get to know her a little bit better, get to know her as Treva. I believe she came out to me about 3 years ago, I believe. And I was like, oh, I knew something was coming. I just didn't know what it was. I was like, okay, now it makes sense. Thank you. And she's been transitioning now for several years, and she's finally ready to tell her story. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome one of my best friends and executive assistant director, producer, and everything Bernard Alvarez related. She is there and a part of it. So, welcome to the show, Treva. You look absolutely gorgeous today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hello.
How's it feel to be in front of the camera this time?
Feels strange.
Right? You're so used to being behind the camera. But anyway, so thank you so much for being courageous enough to come and share your story with everybody today. I think, why don't we start with that era? Oh, no, let's start at the beginning. Let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about your awakening experience. Tell us a little bit about how you grew up and how your life kind of brought you to where you are today. You have a very interesting backstory, so would you be willing to share some of that with us?
Yes.
Sure.
I kind of view my spiritual awakening experience and coming out as trans as kind of like two separate instances, because they happened so, I guess, so far apart. And my awakening story my first spiritual awakening happened back in 2003. But for my transgender story, it was like, I really wasn't one of those like little 5-year-olds that didn't know that I was supposed to be a girl. Back then it was, household was chaotic, and so I really didn't have the opportunity to transition way back then, and I'm kind of grateful for that part in my life. But at the same time, I did know that something was wrong, because when I started school, I think I remember starting grade 3, that was when I started to feel like I was different than everyone else. Like I didn't fit in with the boys or the girls. I was bullied and picked on, but I really didn't know why. So it's like, I guess I view it as children home their senses on someone that's different. It's like their energy is quite different back then. They're more in tune with the spirit world. They're more in tune with that kind of energies, I guess. So they hone their senses on someone that's different, and that's how I guess I kind of knew that I was different. But it wasn't until I was in my early teens, that's when I kind of started to feel even more, because my grandfather had taken my brothers and I to see the movie Neverending Story. And the main character kind of like awakened senses within me, because I had my first same-sex crush was on the main character, Atreyu.
I think everybody did.
That's when I kind of started to feel like how different I was, but at the same time, I didn't know that I was transgender, because back then, and that was kind of, that thing wasn't in I guess household topic. It wasn't talked about. It wasn't known about. So I really didn't know. But it wasn't until about, I'm guessing, 6 years ago that I started to realize who I was. And I came out as bisexual, because I wasn't ready to deal with the fact that I was transgender, because I witnessed a loved one go through with this. So it still didn't click in for me that this is a positive, that I was able to do this. I thought I wasn't going to get to. So I really didn't do anything about it. I started to become envious of the female figure, but not in really a negative way. And then I remember coming out to you, Bernard. This was like even before I first came out. We were on a GAC happy hour, and I kind of like said, I think I'm transgender, but I said it once very quickly, and then the topic changed or something. I'm not sure if you remember that.
Yes, I sure do. I sure do.
Mm-hmm. And then when my experience kind of like continued, I kind of like pushed it down, and it got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. And I believe you told me once, you said you can't ignore this, you got to do something about it. So I actually started doing a lot of research online. You know, I started figuring out where our transgender health clinic is and who the doctors were, and this was in December 2013.
Mm-hmm.
I was in bed on Christmas morning with the flu. I couldn't go to my parents' house for Christmas, and I was thinking about this. You know, I was thinking about me coming. And should I come out? Am I going to come out? I was just thinking about the consequences at work and with family and friends, and I made the decision. I says, yes, I'm going to do this because I can't ignore this anymore. It's like, if I don't do this, I really felt like I really wasn't going to live anymore. So I made the decision to come out, and it's very strange because right after I did that, my flu started to heal like really quick. And I kind of view as me having the flu and the flu healing, I kind of view that as the death of my old self in a very spiritual aspect, I guess. It was strange because when I healed from the flu, I went back to work and I felt like a completely different person. I shaved all my facial hair. That's when I started gradually buying women's clothes and wearing them to work, and that part is history. My boss sat me down, and you know, he had told everybody at work. You know, I believe he may have had a talk with everybody at work. So when I wasn't there to make sure that I was going to be treated well, and my experience of coming out and transitioning at work was a very positive one. So
You're very lucky.
I didn't end up losing my job. It's the company I'm working for is a very LGBT like friendly place anyway. So and that part is history, I guess.
And now we're making more history. So Treva, I know you just covered a lot, and being your friend in all of this, I can remember like so many instances that I feel were a part in molding who you are and who you've become today. Can you share with us a little bit about how? Well, actually, I'll just ask you, has being on the awakening path, being an awakened being, has that helped you throughout this process? Can you draw strength from that? Did it give you clarity, more awareness?
It has. I believe it has helped me immensely because I had the support structure of you and everyone else that we work with, but I also believe I had the support of my guides and angels, and I used the spiritual wisdom that I had to really keep myself grounded and centered within the experience of gender dysphoria and body dysphoria, and really disliking my body. And I really also used meditation, and it's just, it has helped. It has helped. It helped me accept my body rather quickly because I really didn't want to fall into that trap of, because I guess I really didn't want to fall into that 41% of transgender people that have that attempt suicide. So I kind of like use that as kind of like motivation. I used my spirituality a lot, and it's you and you guys and that have had helped me out like so much.
Well, I'm so glad we were all there. I can't help but imagine the process for you. And the reason why I say that is so many of us going through the awakening process alone have to deal with so many struggles, mood swings. You know, a lot of times we feel like we're going crazy just on the awakening process. And here you are transitioning as well, having new hormones put in, transitioning your whole identity. So, you know, I can't help but, you know, thank you for being so courageous to handle so much between the awakening process and the symptoms of awakening, as well as going through what every normal transgender person goes through emotionally. How has that part of the journey been? Has it been lots of ups and downs? Can you feel the symptoms even more now, or how has that been?
It was a very rough journey emotionally. Well, because I believe the symptoms of awakening and some symptoms of hormone replacement therapy can be very similar. As you know, you go through these heavy emotional swings. You start to think, am I crazy or am I not? And you know, when you're going through an awakening, you're like, am I crazy or is this actually happening? Am I normal? And going through the transition for me from male to female, it was much the same way. I started thinking, am I actually transgender? Am I doing the right thing? Am I crazy? And then when you start the hormone replacement therapy, and sooner or later, and soon after you start taking that, the hormones kick in and you start having mood swings. It's like insane. you start thinking it's just like, and then that added on to the spiritual awakening. It's pretty intense, but I will have to say, I believe the spiritual awakening, the symptoms of going through a constant spiritual awakening have kind of almost prepared me for the brunt of the effects of hormone replacement therapy. So, and I did go through a lot of depression and being suicidal earlier this year, but that really wasn't connected to the spiritual or my transition. That was a whole other thing. So
Stress.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2016 has been quite a year for all of us, and you know, again, I commend you for having the strength to continue working with me and all the work that we do and the work that you're doing, your regular day job as well. And speaking of which, I was wondering, can you share some examples of how you came out? I know coming out is a process. You know, many people don't realize that you don't just say, I'm gay or I'm transgender or I'm bisexual, and it's just, you know, the whole world knows. There's layers upon layers upon layers of it. It's first to yourself, then maybe perhaps to your family, maybe to your coworkers, maybe to your friends. So sometimes it's a constant process. You know, people, you know, it's not just a one fell swoop and you're out of the closet, or so to speak. The same thing goes with spiritual awakening, or I always say coming out of the broom closet if you're Wiccan or something like that. There are layers to it. So how was it for you? How was your friends? How was work? How was your family? What was the experience like for you?
All in all, the experience of everything went rather smooth. I came out to myself first, and then I believe the second step I came out online. But I didn't actually go out and say online, hey, I'm transgender. I changed my name, both on Skype and on Facebook and other social media, and that's how my boss at work found out. He started seeing the posts, the transgender posts, and my parents found out through Skype, because I used to have my dad on Skype, and he saw my name change and he informed my mom. My mom got over and she phoned me, and she actually tried to force the information out of me. I said, I can't talk about this with you right now. I'll talk to the both of you soon. And she was like, okay. My dad was very, very accepting. My mom, not so much. I believe my mom blamed my dad at first, but you know, she eventually came around, and the rest is history. You know, everybody at work was so supportive, and my friends the same way. I started to make a lot of friends within the trans community. I started to go to meetings. I went to a group, I believe it's called Gender Journeys, which helps transgender people, you know, with trans topics and meeting people and, you know, how to deal with this and that. And we eventually started a working group, which I believe it's put on hold right now. But you know, it's like I was awakened to this whole community here, and how eventually I got to realize just how spiritual and even pagan a lot of trans people are here in Winnipeg, and that's helped out a lot because it's, yeah, I'm not the only spiritual trans person here.
Yeah. Yeah, you made a very good point. I can't help but notice how within the pagan community and within the spiritual community, most of it is very accepting of LGBT people, especially those on the path of self-empowerment and becoming more authentic. Those who believe in becoming more authentic are more embracing of transgender and or LGBT people. I can't help but be curious, and I don't even think you and I have ever really spoken about this, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot. But you're a twin. You have a twin brother. How did your twin brother, react to this? Is he accepting? Does he?
Yep. Both of my brothers are very accepting. My twin brother says, you know, I'll support you no matter what. So yeah, it's like my younger brother said, basically the same thing. And I also have a couple of half brothers and a half sister. I've spoken to my half sister about it, and she's very accepting. I haven't spoken to the rest of my family about it because they weren't really around to begin with. So I'm just like, everybody in my family's has been great.
Oh, that's really cool.
I am really glad I haven't lost any family or friends. So
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. We're coming up on a commercial break, and I don't want to get into a heavy discussion right before the break. We've got about one more minute. But as far as, well, here's something that people don't seem to realize, and I joked about it before the show today. How expensive is it to go through the transition process?
that actually depends on where you live. It's probably a lot more expensive in the United States than it is in Canada, because in a lot of provinces, the gender confirmation surgery is covered by our healthcare, but the prescriptions for the hormones aren't. So I'm just going to give you a number. I'm paying about $94 a month for it.
Oh, okay.
And it's not really too much.
Right. Okay, well, we're up on our break here, and we're going to return and finish our discussion today with Treva, Lynn, Knott, Transgender and the Path of Awakening. We'll be right back.
And now, back to your host, Bernard Alvarez.
And welcome back to the Just Bernard Show here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are the #1 listener-supported radio station in the world. So if you can, please make a donation at freedomslips.com and keep all these wonderful programs going. We are very happy to have this platform and to share this special broadcast today, quite honestly. So, Treva, in reference to being in the movement, and I don't think this has ever been brought up on a radio show or video show or anything for that matter. We've been a part of this movement together now for 10 years, starting back with the 9/11 Truth Movement, to the Awakening process, to sacred activism. How has that aspect been as far as acceptance and or transphobia and misunderstanding? Do you find that some people are more accepting than others? What was the experience like? Because I know activism a lot of times people in activism, we have a tendency to be angry people as it is, and have a tendency to, shout back a lot. So I'm wondering how, social media has been, how has, the truth movement been and whatnot.
Social media has been relatively accepting due to the fact that being, I guess, first a truther activist, and then we kind of like morphed into like spiritual activism. I've kind of like, I guess, cleaned out my social media accounts of all the trolls and all the haters anyways.
Right.
So, social media's been accepting. I have been to a few activist groups, like most of them were like trans related, but I did go to a march against Monsanto shortly after I came out, and I believe most of them were accepting. It's like one of the two people running it, I believe, were a bit weirded out, but most of them were accepting. I was able to talk to people there, and most of the general public have been accepting. It's just most of the younger people have been accepting, but also it's a lot of the older crowd that just look at you with that WTF look on their face. But it's just like, in transphobia, it's everywhere. To be honest, you could be like, we have two different kind in the community. We call casual transphobia, which is just a small stuff like the stares, the looks, the little rude comments if someone comes up to you and asks you a rude question. But that could also lead into what we call normal transphobia, which is actual people being attacked or their property being vandalized or beat up, or even if somebody tries to like murder somebody just for being trans. It happens everywhere, but
Yeah, that's
here,
the extreme.
In Canada is much, it's a more accepting place than some places in the world. But yeah. I did find out recently that one of the most accepting countries is Thailand, surprisingly enough, because they have the most per capita, because that's where all their like the most popular clinics are. So
that's awesome.
So how I deal with transphobia is just, it's my spirituality has helped. I just most of it, I kind of like this, like do this kind of, just kind of like brush it off because it's their perception of me. That doesn't really matter. There was a meme going around Facebook. It says, whatever people think of me, it's none of my business to be honest, because it doesn't bother, because it doesn't affect me. It only affects them. So
that's very, very true.
Mm-hmm.
And just to bring it up, we recently had I believe it's a national day here in the United States, the Transgender Remembrance Day, and it's very sad to see, how many people around the world are literally murdered because they are transgender, and I feel it's such an injustice when, we try to prosecute people for being who they are. And, that's one of the things I love about paganism and the idea of, harm none, do what you will. You're not hurting anybody. It's nobody's business, And, but I do feel a lot of it comes from the fact that people are not educated on what it means, what to do about it. Quite honestly, I'm very involved here locally in the LGBT community as the vice chairman of the Diversity Center, and even being in it, I still personally have a hard time with all the new labels that are coming out and all the letters of the alphabet. We might as well just start going A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P with all these sub-labels, and people people get so offended if you don't call them non-binary, or you don't call them you know what I mean, Treva, you know what I mean. And so a lot of people don't even know what these terms are. There is no etiquette. You're not trained, how to deal with people that are different than you. And it doesn't matter whether they're transgender. It could be another religion or another, a different color or race sometimes. There's a lot of cultural misunderstanding. And I believe it comes on both sides. Some of us, we get so into our story and into what we identify with that we expect everyone to identify, with or understand what it is that I'm identifying as. That's one of the reasons why I dropped all the labels and I'm just Bernard. And that's the reason for the name of my show, quite honestly. I'm just Bernard. I call me whatever you want. What do they say? Call me whatever you want. Just don't call me late for dinner. But but with that being said, do you have any suggestions, or a great example? The pronouns. That's a big issue for a lot of people. And is there a way to tell when someone is prepared to be called her or they, or is there some underlying rule that we don't know about?
Well, you just basically ask them. Just say, before somebody that I'm going to deal with very often misgenders me, I would prefer them to ask me, hey, would you like to be called he or she? And I would always say she.
Mm-hmm.
So just like being misgendered is a big problem for a lot of people. Sometimes, most of the time, it doesn't bother me, because if it's done by somebody that I'm never going to see again, but oh well. You just ask somebody. It's really hard. It is difficult to get the proper pronouns right, because it was a problem with some people at work, but at the same time, I didn't let it bother me. I just let them, kind of get used to me. So that's just basically what I did. And if people are curious about transgender people, a lot of people will just go up to them and start asking questions, and that can be okay depending on the questions you ask. The questions we don't like being asked is, are you going to have the surgery, or what's between your legs? If you're curious, you could just use Google and do research online, and before you start asking the wrong questions, because with a lot of transgender people, some questions can be very private. So,
you made a good point. That's very funny. People go through it, whether it's transgender or race or whatnot. I have people that say, I was raised in a Cuban household in Miami, and people be like, "Oh, my friend's Cuban. You know him?" We don't all know each other. And same thing goes for if you're gay or you're trans or whatever. We don't all know each other. There's not a secret handshake. It's not a club. But yeah, that's a very, very good point. And it's funny. I get called she all the time, and ma'am and whatnot. I guess maybe because of my hair, and I take it as a compliment. I identify as a male, but if someone says she, I'm like, oh, I'm that pretty. Well, thank you. But anyway, with that being said, what are some of the things that you believe our society, our Western society here in North America, the United States and Canada and whatnot, what are the things that you feel the transgender community needs from the rest of us?
We just basically, I guess we just basically need your support. I guess we need allies. We need it's a really difficult question to answer.
I know, it's pretty heavy, sorry.
We just basically need you to it's the same thing with activism. You turn off your TV, and it's because most of the education from the public about transgender people that people get is from TVs and movies, and that's not the most accurate place to go to be educated. So we just basically we would like the public to let us educate you, and to also try to get you to also educate yourself on it, do research. Like I said before, do research, get to know us, because we're not bad people. We're just a human being, just the same thing, you know. We have the same blood. We put on our pants one leg at a time, just like you do.
Right.
So it's like,
So compassion and understanding, basically.
Yeah, compassion and understanding. And even if you don't support us, that's fine. You know, we're not asking to be liked by everyone. We're just like saying, if you don't like us, you know, just leave us alone. Just keep it to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, because that's just.
What do they say? Opinions are like, you know what? Everyone's got one. And it doesn't mean anything. I mean, I don't know how many people realize how much work you do with me and how much work you've done with me over the past 10 years. And, you know, it doesn't matter who you are. You're my friend. I love you. And your gender is not my concern. My concern is, are we working well together? You know? And I feel that's the way, you know, we could all be a little bit more aware in that sense of, it doesn't matter whether you're gay, it doesn't matter if you're transgender, it doesn't matter if you're Jewish or black or whatever. Can we get along? Can we be friends? And the world would go to such a better way of being if we could just evolve into that. You know, we can't judge people based on an umbrella term, for lack of a better term. You know, we can't just lump people into these things. That's how we ended up where we are today, you know, with all this divisive rhetoric going on, you know, back and forth, Republican, Democrat, gay, straight, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever it is. This divisive behavior extends into the whole realm of transgender acceptance of one another. And I mean, those of us within, how do we call it, sub-communities, for lack of a better term, we have our own issues we need to deal with. We don't need to handle even more, you know, especially those of us going through the awakening experience. It's not easy. You know, it's not easy to be on this path and to be transgender on this path, taking a full circle again. The effort that must go into it, and the strength and the courage and the ability to do practices to keep you grounded is a lot of work. So by all means, I applaud you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And with that being said, what's next for you? Are you happy with your transition? Do you need to come out to anybody else? What's going on with Treva?
I don't believe I need to come out to anybody else. You know, everybody that's important in my life knows. And I am happy with my transition. You know, it's gone beyond, I guess, expectations. Not that I tried to have too many expectations to begin with, but it's like, I am looking forward to the future of this, you know, because I just had an appointment with the Trans Health Clinic, and I was just asking questions for a possible one part of the surgery that I want, and that's really going to be in the future.
Okay.
And I'm not going to have any expectations about that, so I'm just going to let it happen when it does. You know, because there's lots going on,
right, for
lots of people. So,
and I hope we have enough time. We got about 4 minutes left in this segment. I don't think that people seem to understand what it is someone feels when they have gender dysphoria, and how difficult it is to be in a body that you don't think is yours. I mean, I know many of us in the awakening movement, going through the awakening process, can kind of relate to it in the sense that, especially as starseeds, the idea of, okay, you know, what am I doing here? What is this place? You know? So that stranger in a strange land experience, like, these people are crazy. What am I doing on this planet? But imagine asking yourself, what am I doing in this body? What am I doing in this body? This isn't me. I mean, I've never felt that. So I can't relate to that. So I don't think people understand how discombobulating, or how, you know, difficult it must be. Did you have any of that? I mean, how are you now? Apparently you feel comfortable now, But what's it like going through that process of this isn't me?
It's not a pleasant feeling, especially when you're out, when you're starting your journey and you're out trying to find like new appropriate clothes. It's a very trying experience for me when I was just starting my journey and I was just starting to buy women's clothes. Is like finding the right clothes that fit me, trying to find something that makes me feel good. And it's just when you're born in a male body and you're supposed to be, and you're supposed to be female, it's like you're basically at first you're kind of like, why me? But then you're just like, my spirituality kicked in and I was like, yeah, I'm maybe I'm supposed to like go through this journey. Before I incarnated on this planet, I probably signed the contract that said yes, okay, I'll do it. But I was kind of like thinking, why did I do that at first? But now it's like I'm very comfortable in my body. I rarely wear makeup. I go to work freshly shaved, but you can still see like stubble on my face. But I don't really care. So I've gotten over a lot of aspects of body, the dysphoria, and it's a very liberating experience when you do. So
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Treva, we're only got about 2 more minutes. So, what advice? Now that you've been through the process, now that you've conquered, the coming out, you conquered the transition. You're almost coming out the other end now. What kind of advice do you have to young or people that are just now starting to identify as transgender?
I guess I would basically say, it's gonna get better. I know it's not gonna feel like it. You're probably in this space. You're probably feeling a lot of gender or body dysphoria. You're probably very frightened to come up with your parents or family or friends, but take it in stride. Do it when you're ready. If you start the process too early, or if somebody forces the information out of you, it's not good, because I know what that feels like. So just do what you're basically follow your heart and do what your heart tells you, because it's your life. You can't let anybody else control you. You can't let anybody else tell you how to live your life. And that's very hard for a lot of people, because a lot of people love their family, their parents, and their friends, and some of them say, no, you can't do that. And it's just it's a very difficult feeling to have to, like, sometimes if you'll have to like leave them out of your life for a while. So I thankfully haven't had that experience, but I know some close friends that in Winnipeg that have actually had to do that. So I'm very empathetic to how they feel. So basically, I just have to say, don't let anybody try to tell you what to do. It's just like, start this when you're ready. Do a lot of research online, because that's what the internet is for. Ask your doctor. Ask, finding a. If you're in a place where there's no clinic, it's finding a doctor who knows about this stuff can be almost impossible at times. But
So there is help out there, and you're not alone.
Yeah, there's a lot of trans people you could reach out to. We're everywhere, so even if you live in a small town, chances are there's possibly one person there.
That's very true. That's very true. I have to admit, I was very pleasantly surprised at how many transgender people there are in Roanoke, Virginia. My goodness. Who would have thought? I guess they're all coming from the outer towns and small towns and coming here. But, it's a new world. It is a new world. We're living in the 21st century. And as humanity evolves and we become more authentic, we're going to be seeing more and more whether it be transgender or whatever it is. We're allowing ourselves to become our authentic selves, and no one has the right to tell anybody they cannot be their authentic self. With that said, I want to thank you so much, Treva, for doing this. I know you're here every week anyway, but you're always behind the camera and working in the chat. So I want to thank you for having the courage and being able to do this talk with us today.
You're very welcome. You know, it's an honor to be able to tell my story.
Great. And anyway, so Treva and I, of course, will be back next week. I will be doing a very special broadcast on Yule solstice. We're going to be talking about the season, how to align with the energies of the solstice, and we'll be doing a lovely meditation as well for those of you that are celebrating the solstice and Yule. We'll talk a little bit about the history of Christmas and Yule and wrap our head around this pagan/Christian holiday that's morphed into a social Western society holiday. But anyway, it should be really, really good. I don't want to go too much into what's coming in the new year. We are doing some changes. I don't know if you've noticed. We're starting to do more video, working with different people, working and diversifying our topics. But anyway, we love you, everybody, and thank you so much. We'll see you next week.